When Master was a young monk, a skeptic said to him once in India, "Someday all you swamis and sadhus will be very disappointed when you wake up and discover that there is no God." Master gave a classic Yogananda reply. He said, "Well, you may be right, but meanwhile we'll at least have had the satisfaction of knowing that we've done some good." The important thing, and that was a very Dwapara Yuga kind of answer, is not how we define our beliefs, but how we live them. It's not how we box them in, but how we use them in our lives. And the specific definition of there is a God isn't nearly so important as that we live in such a way as to give us greater inspiration and fulfillment. A couple of friends of ours, psychologists who are retired from Stanford, came over to talk to me the other day. And the man asked me, how can psychology work hand in hand with religion? I said, it's not a matter of using psychology and psychological methods of investigation and inquiry and so on to ascertain whether there be higher states of consciousness and how we can define those states and what they might mean. I said, what you need to do is get people to ask, people who are in religion, to ask themselves simply, what is it doing for me? If it's making you more dogmatic, it's not really helping you. If it's making you more narrow-minded and narrow-hearted, it's not doing anything for you. If it's making you happier, that's where you need to begin. Definitions of samprajñāta samadhi and asamprajñāta samadhi, as I heard some pundit declaiming in a lecture in India, are simply beside the point. Someday, no doubt, and I hope very soon, we'll all have samadhi. Meanwhile, it's not where we're at right now. What we need to do is understand that we want more happiness, less sorrow. We want more love, less meanness. We want more charity, less narrow-mindedness, selfishness. We want certain things, and these are universal desires. It's not as if some people say, well, okay, you want happiness. Personally, I prefer to be miserable. They say misery loves company, but not in that sense. We all want the same basic things. We want to avoid unhappiness and to find happiness. It's really that simple. And if you look even at animals, you'll see that that's basically their thrust. Even the low worms, they found that they can teach them lessons how to, for example, their intelligence is not Einsteinian, but nonetheless, there may be a channel that will give them some kind of a reward and another channel they can follow that will give them an electric shock. And they get that electric shock enough times and they learn that they want to take the other channel. Life, we learn by trial and error, and we always learn in the direction of avoiding pain and then finding that which fulfills us, finding that which gives us happiness. When I hear that the purity of religion must be guarded by an organization, this is something Master never talked about. I got a letter the other day talking about how important it is for Ananda and SRF to unite, because only in that way can the purity of the teachings be preserved. Now that's an expression I've heard many times. I'll tell you this, I never once heard it from Master. He didn't talk about the purity of the teachings. What, for God's sake, is the purity of the teachings? It's living them. And when I went to India, because I had really believed that that had to be through organizations and so on, and I was the organizer, you might say, in SRF. I organized the main office, I organized the monks, I organized the ministers, I organized the centers, I organized the lay order. What was there left? I always did it quite openly stating that I considered organizations a necessary evil. But I did see them as necessary, and I think they're necessary, yes, in the way that a body's necessary. You can't be quite as effective as a ghost or a disincarnate spirit. You try to get something moving and your hand passes through it. So we need an organization. We need an organization to function physically, and we need that organization to function well, which is why we have medical practice and so on. But the fact is that it is an evil, because look at all that attends this body, all the aches and pains, the limitations, the heaviness. It's so inconvenient. But on the other hand, as long as you've got worldly desires and as long as you need to function in this world, well, you need it. Same thing in religion. Organizations are needed, as Sri Yukteswar said to Master, because, mind you, remember from Autobiography of a Yogi that Sri Yukteswar's, that Master's bias was toward non-organization. When Sri Yukteswar said, "Why don't you start an organization?" Master said, "Must I?" He says, "I always privately considered organizations," what was the expression? A hornet's nest, that's the right word. Never mind. Sorry for that laugh. Sri Yukteswar said, however, that honey is good, but you don't get honey without a hive. And you don't get honey produced by one bee. It has to be a lot of bees going together. And so he said, why don't you create hives of God realization and love of God? And in that, of course, we see it's necessary. This is what makes a place like Ananda so wonderful. But you know, I had a very fascinating insight when I lived in India, because I saw that the purity of the teachings, such as we might wish them to be or are, depend much more on individual realization. In the Catholic Church is a perfect example, and I only mention the Catholic Church because it's organization par excellence, but SRF's going to go that way. All organizations try to go that way. They try to say this is true, and only this is true, and anything else is heresy. Well, sometimes it may be, and sometimes it isn't. But to say that any one truth is the truth is, if it worked, I would be all for it. What I don't see is that it works. I see, for example, that if there is, well, take St. Joseph of Cupertino. Great example. He was a little, very humble person who was somehow, he lived in a monastery, but he was somehow rendered incompetent for his duties in the kitchen by the fact that he could never keep his feet on the ground. He was always levitating. And he became sort of an embarrassment to the church. And so they kept sort of shunting him off in the dead of night to new and newer and more distant monasteries. And he was extremely well thought of by all sorts of people. Royalty would come down from Germany to be with him, and people from all over Europe used to come to him. And so it was an embarrassment to the church. Okay, look at it this way. The church ordains ministers. But you've got somebody like this who seems to be a lot more ordained than the average minister. What are you going to do? It becomes an embarrassment. You can't make all ministers equally ordained. The best thing is to shove this one out of sight. There was a man down, I think it was the Claretian order in Los Angeles, who used to levitate. And so all sorts of crowds of people used to come to his church. Well, obviously the other priests complained, and, and they didn't want their churches empty while this one church was full. It wasn't fair. So what could the church do? Well, they have an expression for it. They call it putting them in prison. They didn't literally send him to prison, but they did send him to Coventry, as the English expression is. They sent him to Spain, where he would be unknown. Well, this is something perfectly natural if you look at it from a particular point of view. But what I noticed in India is that if somebody comes up and announces a heresy, A good example of heresy was Rajneesh. Rajneesh was claiming things as he was disagreeing with the teachings of the yogis, and did so openly. I used to think, well, if you're going to disagree with people, talk to them. Don't bring it to a public that's totally unwashed and ignorant. Bring it to the people who know what it's about, but he didn't. And, well, I'm not going to go into the particulars of that. But what I do want to say is, because I used to first see notices on telephone posts and lamp posts in Rishikesh and elsewhere about his method of chaotic meditation. I thought, this is absurd. But what I was most impressed about in India was that nobody really did anything. They didn't object. They didn't stop him. They didn't say this is heresy. They didn't go to war over it. They let him go. Their feeling is exactly what one of the elders in the Judaic religion, Rabbi Gamaliel, said back when the Christians were creating a stir in Jerusalem, and they were all worried, and they thought they should really stop this heresy and persecute them and so on. And he got up and he said that if what they're doing is of God, then it will flourish no matter what you or I can do. And if it isn't of God, it will die a natural death, and you and I don't have to worry about it. Well, they didn't buy that argument because they were too much into this logical thinking. And as a result, the Romans even tried by persecution to kill thousands and thousands of Christians. All it did was bring more people to the flock. Because the truth is that truth exists. Truth is. You can't promote it. You don't need Madison Avenue to promote it. It simply is. That's why Lahiri Mahashai so beautifully insisted that his teaching not be organized. Well, of course, he's not opposite. He's not contradicting, and Master wasn't contradicting him. It wasn't the time yet for that aspect of these teachings to be nailed down, you might say. But Lahiri Mahashai wouldn't let people organize. He one time, as you read an autobiography of a yogi, he one time had to squelch somebody's attempt to promote him as a great modern saint and so on. He said, leave it alone, don't worry. If it's true, people will understand. It will spread gradually. This is the way truth really spreads. When Einstein discovered the theory of relativity, it isn't as if there was suddenly a whole crowd of acolytes going around and passing out leaflets in the streets. It isn't as if people who were converted began fighting against those who didn't quite believe absolutely. In fact, let's face it, nobody even understood the guy, except 10 people, they used to say. But they were the right 10 people. And those 10 people, because of their reputation, saying, yes, this is true, explained it to others. Now, I read a leaflet. It was written in Russia, but in English, and it was extremely well written, trying to explain to dodos like me what the theory of relativity is all about. I have to admit, it just left me completely in the woods. Maybe with a lot of thought, I might be able to get some slight handle on it. But the fact is that it doesn't really matter. That's not what I was looking for, and so I didn't much care. But in religion, if something resonates with who you are, resonates with basically this thought, not whether Jesus is in fact the only Son of God or is not in fact the only Son of God, whether there is a Trinity or God is only one, all of these things are really, they're not something that we need to worry about at our present stage. One group of men came to me in Los Angeles many years ago and announced to me that they were the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. They were quite hurt because they had come to me wanting my endorsement. I said, listen, if you are the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, you don't need my endorsement. So they were quite disappointed with me, but you get so much nonsense And sometimes it's fun. Nonetheless, you've got to bring it down to the bedrock of who you are and where you are. What are you looking for in life? Are you really looking for samadhi? Dr. Lewis, who was pretty deep on the path, came to Master one time toward the end of Master's life and tried to say he wanted samadhi. And he sort of backed Master in a corner. Finally, Master looked at him strongly and he said, "Are you ready for it?" "No, sir, I guess not." That is not a small thing to have samadhi. Some woman came to me years ago and said, "I've been practicing Kriya Yoga for 6 months and I'm not in samadhi yet." Well, get real. As long as you are still busy with things and as long as things mean something to you. I know Master said to me, your life is one of intense activity and meditation. And boy, I was really into meditation, and I wasn't all that happy with that first part of the sentence. But I've seen over the years that this is what it has been. It's what it had to be. It was the way I could serve Master, and there are other people who can do the other, but this is my job. Well, I don't think I'm ready for samadhi. I wouldn't want it. I would say, yes, but I've got this much to do still. I'm doing it for you. But if I don't do it, who will do it? And so I feel an obligation. Master placed that obligation on my shoulders. I think if I were in ecstasy, I would be saying, well, the heck with all that stuff, because it really means nothing to me anyway. Never has. But as long as it's there to be done, as long as Master has told me that he wanted me to do it, as long as I can see the need for it, then this is what my life is all about. And God will take care of my liberation when it comes. But we've got to be real about our state right now. And this is what I saw in India. When, however, one person had an experience, and it was a true experience, a fire, you remember the story of Pinocchio? Papa Geppetto had a fire in his fireplace, but unfortunately, he didn't have a fireplace and he didn't have the money to buy wood, so he had a painting of a fire. And with this, he had to keep warm. Well, the important thing is not the image of the fire, not the pretense of the light, but if there really is light. Where there's light, people flock. Where there's honey, bees flock. Where there's sweetness, people come. And the important thing in religion is not dogmas, it's not ideas, it's experience. This is one thing. People worry about what science has done to undermine religion. In some ways, of course, it has. Basically, however, what science has done is wonderful. It has said without experiment, which in religious terms would be experience, you can't claim to know anything. People used to say the world is flat, didn't make it flat. People used to say the world is the center of the universe, or they didn't think of it as the universe, but God's creation. They found out that it wasn't. Again and again, experiment has proved that certain dogmas, certain beliefs, certain presuppositions were not valid. And so it is that we now, in our search for truth, must understand that it's got to be experiential. I mean, yes, when I meditate, I feel great joy. I feel God's love. That's what makes it worthwhile to me. If it were only just an intellectual belief, it would mean nothing. But I feel so in love with Him that I just want everybody to have the same feeling. That's what it's about. We want to experience God's presence in ourselves. And when we do, others feel it. You wouldn't have come to Ananda if you hadn't felt something. Now, in India, this is the proof of the whole teaching, whether it does something for you or not. And because the Indian teaching rests not on an institution saying what ought to be, but rather here are people who make it so. Therefore, Religion is far more alive in India than it is in the West. I was always struck in India because sometimes Christian missionaries, seeing me in orange, would be outraged. But I remember that all the Indian Christians I met, without exception, were gratified. They have it inbred in their culture that it doesn't matter how you define truth, the important thing is that you live it, that you experience it. All of them said, "Oh, how wonderful," because they see me not as an outrage to their beliefs, but as somebody who loves God also. It's so wonderful in India, being a Hindu country basically, to see Hindus pass in front of a church and bow in reverence, because they know that the same God that they love is being loved and worshipped also in that church. Well, this is what Dwapara Yuga is all about. This person who wrote me a letter the other day said that he believed in the organization. I don't. I've come over the years to feel that organizations, more than ever, to my way of thinking, are a necessary evil. But the important thing, as Master said to us at Mount Washington once, he said there are many mice and rats living in the canyon on this property. They are not advancing spiritually. They're not finding God. He said it's not just a matter of coming here, of living here. It's a matter of living the principles, living the teachings in yourself. That's what it's all about. You, this is the words he said, you have to individually make love to God. Now that comes always back to the individual. The individual is the only way to prove truth, not some highly and refinedly honed definition, but the joy that you have in your heart, the peace, the love. Well, Dwapara's purpose, I can't speak of purpose, but that's what it accomplishes, is that it brings people more into an awareness of the necessity for actual individual experience of truth. Master said to this skeptic who couldn't understand God, it would have meant nothing to him if God had appeared on a cloud. He would have just sort of had some sort of superstitious awe, but nothing more. Master put it right there on the level that that man could understand. He said, at least we will have the satisfaction of knowing that we've done some good. Well, that man was completely centered in his own selfishness, his own ego, his own desires. Master talked of what he wanted, satisfaction. And he showed him how he could get that satisfaction by serving others, not by grabbing it selfishly for yourself. And so he gave him just the right answer for that person. And this is what he taught us in his emphasis on Dwapara Yuga. He said, the religion of the future will be self-realization. I said once to Dayamata, he cannot have meant Self-Realization Fellowship Incorporated, because we were having this thing where they were trying to control everything that we said. Her answer was, that's your opinion. Well, yes, it jolly well is my opinion. It was Master's opinion, too. He was talking about every religion will come to the point in the future when people understand that the purpose of religion is to help you in your own personal relationship with God, not to help build an organization, but to help you in your own private devotions. All religions have that for their real goal. Why did the Masters come? Not to create institutions like General Motors, no. They came to help us individually to realize what we're looking for in our true selves. All of us want what religion alone can really give us, if religion is understood in the right way. So Dwapara Yuga will bring people that understanding for one thing, and a very important thing, that experience, direct experience is what understanding is all about. in Kali Yuga, there is the tendency to want to box things into fixed definitions. A definition is not the truth. I can say God is love and live a totally persecuting life. I read when, I think it was the 500th anniversary of Torquemada, who was the great Inquisition torturer and whatever else you want to call him in Spain. And an article came out in the Vatican paper and in the Italian papers saying that he wasn't really as bad as history depicts. What does that mean? That he only killed 900 instead of 1,000? This means he's better? He was a humble monk. Well, I don't know about humble. If he had this absolute certainty that he knew the truth and nobody else did, I call that arrogance. Torquemada was a butcher. Is this what Christ came to make us? Our goal in life should be to be Christ-like. It is entirely false to say, well, what are we? We can't be like him. They don't come for that purpose. They come to show us what we are. Jesus didn't come to show us how great he was. He kept bringing it back to us. The kingdom of God is within you. This is the truth. And this is what Kali Yuga de-emphasized. Dwapara Yuga will emphasize more. But don't imagine that Dwapara Yuga is going to be a time of great spirituality. As I said the other day, it is still a materialistic age. People will think still in terms of things and using things. They'll just think in terms of how to use them better. They won't think in terms so much of not being interested in things. Wars won't stop. Master said there will come a great explosion where not a corner of this world will be safe. But after that, mankind will be so sick of war that they won't go to war again for another 200 years. Well, that's nice, but 200 years isn't very long. It'll take them 200 years to sort of overcome the exhaustion of hatred and violence. And after that, well, they'll have better ways of killing people. They'll be able to go to other planets. Master talked of a time in the future when people would have to build cities underground because of interplanetary warfare. Not altogether a pleasant prospect. Makes me sort of think I don't want to be around. But on the other hand, there will be a greater flow, much more awareness of matter as energy. And that energy can be used for evil as well as for good. It's a strange thing how many great scientific achievements have been made possible because of war, trying to develop a weapon that will destroy. Strange, isn't it? War seems to be, conflict seems to be, difficulties of all kinds, tests seem to be necessary in order for us to grow, to learn. Okay, so war may not be knocked out, but meanwhile we will learn a lot more, and many more people will come to God in this age than previously, because they will understand that it's a matter of individual effort. It's not a fixed, brittle concept that they need to cling to. It's what they do that matters. They need to meditate. They need to practice Kriya. They need to offer devotion to God. It isn't enough merely to dogmatize and pass pamphlets out in the streets. Do what they teach. Now then, in the future, religions will come to understand that that's really what it's all about. And moreover, it does happen, has happened, is continuing to happen, that the different religionists, as they get to know one another, begin to see that they're not that different. They're all talking about principles. They may define certain principles in the form of Krishna or Ganesha or Jesus or Buddha or all these different things. But even the Muslims who insist that no idol and no form should be worshipped, Guru Nanak said to them, Don't you see? You can't get away from it. Even you bow to that stone in Mecca. The human mind needs something external to prostrate itself to. And like that story of Master when he went to Tarakeshwar, and he wouldn't bow to that image there. It's just a round stone symbolizing infinity. And as a result, he had all the inconvenience the following day. Those of you who have read Autobiography of a Yogi will recall how in his search for this Saint Ram Gopal, he was advised by someone, as Master put it, who was not bothered by fine distinctions of left and right. So he sent him on a wild goose chase, and it was a very inconvenient day for him until he met Ram Gopal. Ram Gopal's first question of him was, "Where is God?" And Master said, "Well, he's within me and everywhere." And he said, "He's also outside you then, isn't he?" "Yes." "Then why didn't you bow to that stone image in the temple at Tarakeshwar, which he was able to see by his spiritual vision?" The thing is that this is human nature, and those people who are too austere have not only very arid hearts and arid lives, but they miss a golden opportunity. To say, "I don't want a guru," means you don't want to listen to anybody? Or you're going to take everybody and relate it to your own omniscience? That somebody says something that would inspire other people, and you say, "Well, I'll think about it." It doesn't work like that. It's much more beautiful to find inspiration from everywhere. It doesn't mean that everybody inspires you, but it means that you're always looking for that inspiration so that when it comes, you think, "Oh, thank you." And it's more than that. I remember one time I was given the task of going to the different colleges to arrange lectures for the Shankaracharya of Kanchipuram, of Govardhan Math in Puri. And I went to the Academy of Asian Studies in San Francisco, and the president of that academy was Ernest Wood, who was a famous writer, I should say, on yoga. But I didn't know that he was a yogi, didn't know he was well known in his field, didn't know that he was a practitioner of spiritual things. I just imagined he was a president. And so I talked to him in that way, and it was casual, and we set up a lecture for the Jagadguru, and I left. Well, as I was going down the freeway, I suddenly remembered this man's eyes. And I thought, my God, those were wonderful eyes. There was joy in those eyes. And I felt very inspired. It was later that I found out who he really was. But this experience we need from each other. We become very isolated if we reject it. The consciousness of neti, not this, not that, is a limited consciousness if it doesn't include the ability to see windows through which God smiles at us from everywhere. So we need this example of other people living these teachings. In religion, that is going to happen. But it won't happen as long as they keep trying to put them in prison. It won't happen as long as they keep sort of burying under a rug the existence of certain people who deserve our respect not because of their position, but because of what they emanate. In fact, great saints are not often priests. As I mentioned to you in another class, St. Otto of Cluny said once that the floors of hell are paved with the bald pates of clergymen. Not altogether a fair assessment of things, nonetheless. I mean, after all, if you've dedicated your life to God, there must be something. Nonetheless, who you are inwardly is the entire story. And in a monastery, it may sometimes be just the gardener who's inspiring. I remember we had a wonderful gardener, Mrs. Merck. She was the wife of the person who started Merck Pharmaceuticals. And she retired. She was an old lady. She worked in the garden. But it was so sweet to see her. She used to speak of the flowers as her children. She had a thick Swedish accent. She would say, my children. But this humility, this sweetness that she emanated, she had no position there. She'd had all sorts of position beforehand. It didn't matter one way or the other. But the fact that she loved the flowers, she loved God in the flowers, she was humble. This is what it's all about. Don't look at position. Look at person, how he or she lives his life. And so, in the religions, it's going to become more and more a recognition that these priests don't know it all. He alone knows it, who has experienced it. And sometimes the most ignorant person will be somebody who deserves all respect. There's that beautiful story, again, in Autobiography of a Yogi. Again and again this morning I've quoted Autobiography of a Yogi to show how Master endorsed the idea of spirituality being inward, not outward, individual, not institutional. He quoted this story of Tolstoy. There were these three hermits on an island in Greece who had a very unusual prayer. They would pray, we are three, thou art three, have mercy upon us. Well, it wasn't a very sophisticated prayer, but they said that there were many miracles took place in the presence of these hermits. And the bishop of the area, thinking, well, these people are wonderful souls, I would like to give them, for their edification, the prescribed prayers of our liturgy in church. And so he went to the island. He taught them these recognized and official prayers, and they were humble and they were very grateful to him. And so he left feeling he'd accomplished a good thing. And as he was on his boat leaving, suddenly saw these three men running over the water with hand in hand. They're saying, wait, Your Excellency, please, we've forgotten the prayers you've taught us. Could you go over them once more? He said, my children, you don't need those prayers. Religion is going to come more and more in that direction, where it isn't an either or. Churches are a good thing. I myself love to go to churches when in a place where I see a church that's open. I'll go in and meditate there. It's a lot better than having a vacuum in the corridor of the hotel. There's an inspiration there, especially if people, because places have atmosphere, they have vibrations. And if God has been loved there, the place is filled with that love. And if he hasn't, it's just dry and you might as well be in the market. But there are many churches that have that. There's a church outside Rome. If you ever go to Rome, try looking for it. It's called, I think it's La Chiesa del Divino Amore, Church of Divine Love. And it's not touted particularly, but going there I felt just such a wonderful love. And somebody had urged me to go just because she had felt that there too. It's that vibration that counts. And if somebody had come up and told me why I should feel vibrations and why I should feel uplifted, I think my upliftment would have been slightly diminished. Like when Brother Elias came to St. Francis, and he was a very learned and very eloquent person, and he was converted by him and joined their troop as they were walking along. But somehow, as he walked with them, the monks began to feel a little less and less inspiration, because he was telling them why he felt that it was important to join them, why it was good to feel peace and to so on. All these reasons are not, the heart has its own reasons. You know, it's very interesting. Among the most recent discoveries in medicine is that the heart has more nerves than the brain, and that the heart has a certain intelligence. It's not just a pumping organ for pumping blood. There is a certain intelligence there, and anybody who's had to work with consciousness knows how important the heart's feelings are. I know people would often come to me when I was in college with all sorts of learned theories. I would say, if it doesn't feel right here, don't accept it. It has to feel there's wisdom in the heart. And that's why Master, in his chapter on cosmic consciousness, said that I cognize the center of this empyrean, this cosmic consciousness, as a point of intuitive perception in my own heart. This is where your real center is. This is the center of the ego, but your real center of being is in the heart. It's a citta which reacts positively or negatively, that knows the truth or rejects falsehood. It's a seat of intuition. And if you want to know whether anything is true, see whether it resonates with your heart. Now, the future of religion is going to go more toward the heart. The heart can be an aid. It can also be an obstacle. When you feel great purity and love in your heart, that energy can go downward as well as upward. Watch it very carefully then to direct it upward, lest delusion catch you through your very love. It's astonishing, but it can happen. The temptation can take you downward, even because of the great love that you feel in your heart. It's good to love outwardly, but unless that love is based in an upward flow toward the Spirit, it will be imperfect, and it will take you again into delusion. God first, God second, God all the time. And in that context, then, with His love, you can love all. Don't think that love alone is the answer. Love with God and love in God is the answer. And so, in religion, people will understand more and more that this is what it's about. And when it becomes that, then distinctions of Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, all these are trivial. The important thing is, how do you love God? When you die, the question He will ask you will be, do you love me? Not, have you been a good Baptist? Couldn't matter less to Him whether you've been a Baptist at all, or whether you've even gone to church. I've met some people, usually men, because they tend to be more abstract, who are very sincere devotees, but never go to church, never even read the Bible. There was the story of Mira. Mirabai was this great devotee of Krishna, and she's very inspiring to people even today for the songs that she wrote. And she was always sort of heartbroken because her husband didn't seem to her to be a devotee. He never talked about God. He never joined her in her kirtans. And she prayed to God, please convert him. Well, meanwhile, Master told this story. Master said he was a greater devotee than she. But he had made a pact with God that his love for God was so precious that he didn't want anyone to know about it. One night they were sleeping, and she woke up and heard him in his sleep speaking to God with great longing. And she was so excited. And the next day, she said, I found your secret. He said, don't say it. Please don't say it. He said, oh yes, I know how much you love God. He said, I'm sorry you said that, because I have made a pact with God that if anybody found my secret, I would leave this body. He sat down in lotus pose, left his body. Well, people don't know that side of her story, but Master told it. It's the beauty of religion, that it be a deep personal thing that doesn't have to be a show at all. But again, as I say, this is usually a male thing. When people say that men and women are exactly alike, this is a most unfortunate thing if it were true. If the only difference is a biological thing that will make us breed, I just don't think that's enough. As the French say, vive la différence. The important thing is to understand that we do have differences as personalities, and even our hormones certainly account for some differences. There was some woman in Seattle who was definitely a feminist who was declaiming on the radio that men are no taller than women. Well, look around you. You've got to look at reality and not what ought to be real. The truth is that it's very wonderful because we've got two sides of our nature, reason and feeling. And it's wonderful that these two exist and can be brought into unity in the saints. If you look at the saints, you can't really tell often if they're men or women. They're balanced. One time, Master was on a train and this porter was walking up and down the aisle. Finally he said, "Is you a man or is you a woman?" Master with a deep voice said, "What do you think?" But the fact of being more disposed, I mean, a woman has breasts here, not here as our lower animals. Here, what it does is it stimulates the feelings in the heart. It stimulates devotion. And if you want to give precedence to one over the other spiritually, you have to say that love is more important than well, not than reason, because love is than wisdom, no. But love is certainly, devotion is much more important than reason. And men would do well to learn to develop devotion. But the difficulty with devotion is that it can also become emotion. This is why they need the balance. Master used to say, devotion needs to be kept in a state of reason, or else it will become emotion. Emotion takes you downward. Emotion takes you outward into the senses. And so to have both. But when you have your mind here, let the basis of it be in the heart. Let that lift your consciousness upward. Otherwise, you'll be an armchair yogi. So sitting back there and thinking, yeah, this is a good thing, but, I got other things to do too. There's got to be longing for God, and that's what it's all about. The need for balance, I think that what we're going to see in Dwapara Yuga is not a cancelling out of these differences, but a refinement of them so that each can appreciate the contribution of the other. Each can help the other in a way that if they stand alone, there is aridity or useless excitement. Both help you to grow spiritually. But I believe that in time, women and men will sort of fall naturally into their own roles. It isn't that they need to be one thing or the other. And if you are by nature more masculine, even though you're a woman in a woman's body, well, who cares? Be yourself. Don't just be something because people tell you ought to be that. I know that a niece of Master's is sort of a toughie. She looks very much like him. But that aspect of his personality was just willpower. One time she was in the streets of Calcutta walking, and some man passing her in a car called out, "Hello, fatty!" And he stopped at a stoplight, and she came over to him. The window was down, and she biffed him in the nose. Well, I have to say I like that spirit. But basically people will naturally find their own, what fulfills them. And not many women, although some women certainly do, but not many women like the challenge of the risks of, starting a community like Ananda where all the chances were that I'd fail. To me, it just didn't matter, but I think not the average woman would want to take such a risk. They like the security. It's just a natural thing. Master said that for this reason, male organ is outside, female organ is inside. The male energy is outward. The female energy is more inward. But what we need to get away from is this absurd tendency, which has come over again from Kali Yuga, which says that this is right, nothing else can be right. And so the men have pretty well ruled the roost, and that shouldn't be. I know a number of men in India have expressed to me the wish that their wives would be more like Sita, who was the ideal woman. And my answer to them has always been, then you become more like Rama. Rama had deep respect for his wife. There was a wonderful relationship between them. In fact, just to sort of pass lightly into a slightly jocular mode here, my father used to say, because I never knew them to argue, I never saw them argue, I never heard of them arguing. They were always very harmonious. My dad had an explanation for it. He said that when we were married, I told my wife that I would make all the important decisions in this marriage. He said, since then, there just haven't been any important decisions to make. But the truth is that what I saw between them was complete mutual respect, so that if one of them got pig-headed about something or emotional about something, the other would say, okay. And if it happened the other way around, same thing, because they placed their love and friendship and marriage ahead of every other priority. Well, this is what we need to do. We need to place friendship ahead of everything else. People are more important than things, as we often say at Ananda. Love for God is the most important thing. And I don't at all doubt that women can be just as good and even better than men. If you look at school, you'll find that it's always the girls who are ahead. Why? Not that they're necessarily less intelligent. I don't think so. But I have to say that I was in class and I would disagree with the teacher. A girl wouldn't. She would try to understand what the teacher was wanting. I was trying to get the teacher to understand what I was wanting. The difference in temperament is there. I simply wasn't interested in what they were trying to teach me. I was trying to add what they were teaching me to my own store of understanding. So this is why you see definitely differences, but I do believe, and I very much applaud it, that feminine energy is going to become much more important in the future as mankind begins to understand that you don't solve things by reason alone. Feeling is the important thing. And so we'll see it also, well, for example, in politics. You know, what have been the most successful leaders in politics in recent times? I would say Indira Gandhi was very good in her way. Golda Meir was very good. Margaret Thatcher. In fact, down the line you see an awful lot of women. Out of very few who could do it, those who did it very well. Why? Because the men think that all they need to do is sit down and come to a reasonable conclusion. And these women were spitfires and saw what was needed and did it. Well, that's the kind of energy the future will bring to us. More energy, more feeling, but calmed feeling, and so we need the balance. The future of religion in politics, I believe, is going to come down to a level less of treaties. In that play that I wrote, The Peace Treaty, I pointed out that a peace treaty is not worth the paper it's printed on, because people will only follow it to the extent that they want to. As soon as they change their minds, they're going to find reasons around it. What we need then is to understand that we are one human family. And this is something that we're coming to understand very easily and automatically by the sheer fact that somebody here in California can wake up in the morning and find himself in Bombay or Tokyo or wherever else on the world. And he sees that these people who centuries ago he used to think were strange creations, people used to sort of doubt the integrity of people living on the opposite side of a hill. Now we've come to understand that these are human beings, and that if they like this or that, they like curry, we like mashed potatoes and hot dogs or whatever, Big Franks, I should say, we still want food. We still enjoy eating. And the enjoyment of somebody eating curry and the enjoyment of somebody eating a good pasta depend entirely on their expectations of finding it enjoyable. I've seen Italians just not like Indian food. I've seen Indians who turn their noses up at pasta. The definitions don't matter. It's the gratification of your need for something nourishing, something to your habit tasteful. This is the thing that matters, or tasty, I should say. So with our growth in Dwapara Yuga, our politics are going to come down much more to a level of understanding. The people are going to be more important. Leaders won't be in the same position to make absolute decisions. Master said that in the future, the people will push their politicians to the front lines and say to them, if you want to fight it out, go ahead. We're not interested. It's never the people who want war until their anger and hostility is flamed. But I remember I was traveling through Germany just a short time. I think it was 1938, before the Second World War. And we met so many people who were very loving, friendly, would do anything for us. They weren't all Nazis. No, you had a few of those. But there was still human beings are human beings, and it doesn't matter really how they appear. There is a certain brotherhood that we can all feel once we've met enough of these people. You know the story in Alice in Wonderland, or Alice Through the Looking Glass, rather, where somehow, because it's a dream, her meal becomes human and individualized. And she's just about to dig into this delicious pudding when somebody introduces the pudding to her. And he says, pudding, Alice, Alice, pudding. Alice can't dig her spoon into that pudding anymore. She's met the thing. Well, it's this, that when you get to know people, you don't want to hurt them. And when you know what people are all about, and when you know where they're coming from, then you sympathize, because their problems are not really that different from ours. We're all in the same bag together. And so I think politics are going to become much more smoothed out. Not completely, no. As I said, there will still be wars, and they'll be much more emotional and, unfortunately, more violent. But on the other hand, peace will also become greater. War won't completely disappear until about the middle of Treta Yuga, where first they will use all sorts of weaponry of great sophistication to hurt people. And then they will use mind force and mantric force to damage and hurt and kill people. But in time they'll begin to see that we're all one. And so in higher Treta Yuga, people will begin to, they just won't want to fight. Now we can help bring that day about by expressing it in our own lives. So in this way too, Dwapara Yuga will become living reality. It'll change our way of thinking toward everything and everybody. In business, I mentioned the other day that America, which is really the Dwapara Yuga country, it's sort of the wave of the future, because we don't have all that baggage of the past holding us down to old ways of thinking. And it's a lot easier in this country to think of new ideas, embrace new ideas. And one thought that I know, I grew up in Europe, as you know, and there you'd go to a store and you'd order something. You couldn't handle it yourself. The clerk or whoever would go back, get it for you, wrap it up very carefully, take about 5 minutes doing that. You'd pay your money and you'd leave. Well, there was not much chance for dishonesty. When the Americans came along and thought, okay, so people are not able to be dishonest, but we're not making as much money as we would if the customers could get there and handle these things. And if they stuff them in a few bags, okay, we'll lose, but we'll gain a great deal more. You see how much this is Dwapara Yuga thinking? That the flow of energy will make up for the loss of specific items. And in fact, that's happened so clearly, been so clearly effective, that in Italy today, the only store I know where you can't actually handle the food and go down the aisle and pick out what you want, is a pharmacy where they still wrap things up very carefully. Well, I can understand that. You go into a pharmacy and you don't really know what you're getting. You might kill yourself by the pills that you take off the shelf. There was this one woman who received an invitation, a social invitation, and she couldn't read it. So she thought, well, pharmacists can read illegible handwriting of doctors. So she went to the pharmacy and asked the pharmacist to read this for her. He said, just a moment, please. And he went back. He came back 5 minutes later with a little package. He said, it'll be $5, please. It's a joke. Don't worry that your pharmacist may pull that one on you, but who knows? It's understandable in a pharmacy, but in a drugstore, in a grocery store, how many times have I gone into a grocery store thinking all I need is, let's say, a bottle of milk? I come back with a lot of things because I've seen them there. I wouldn't have taken them if I hadn't seen them, if I hadn't been able to hold them and look at them and say, yeah, okay, I'll take this. And let's face it, we're affected. Whether we like it or not, we know it's all a scam, but we do like pretty things. So, for example, Peter has given me a cough medicine, which is a beautiful little pearl. It looks sort of like amber. And I enjoy taking it just because it's pretty. Whereas the other one that he gave me before was white, and I kept forgetting to take it. This is human nature. I'm more of a sucker than anyone, maybe, I don't know. But we find that this is Kali Yuga way of doing things, that the flow of energy is a lot more important than the specific things that you're getting. And when that flow is there, this also works with finances. I wrote a book on the subject called Money Magnetism, that instead of thinking, there was an interesting thing I read, it was in the Reader's Digest many years ago, where it described a reunion of some sort, a meeting, I forget what it was. All of these people were CEOs and very important people in their own industry. And it talked about their future 20 years later. Each one of them had failed in some drastic respect. All of them were poor. Most of them were failures, just generally. Strange, but positions are not fixed. You can't expect security in those things. But you'll find that when a person has energy, if he fails in one way, he can succeed in another. There's this story again about a man who was a miner, and he was for a long time just penurious. But one day he came back with a big sale. He'd found a gold mine, sold it, came back with $1 million. And he said to his wife, honey, look at all this money we've got. And so she, wanting to keep it very safe, they never had enough money to build a fire, and so she put it in the stove. Well, he went out and got drunk. That was his way of celebrating. She was asleep. He came back with a whole bunch of his cronies, and they were all having a high time, and they got some wood and built a fire, and the whole $1 million went up in smoke. And when she came out and found what he'd done, she just broke out crying. She said, we're just going to be poor all our lives. He said, never mind, honey, I'll find another mine. He did. He sold her for $40 million. This was supposed to be at least a true story, but the truth is that what is really responsible for your success in life is the energy, the right attitude, the courage, the expectation. It isn't specific things. Don't worry too much. Somebody came to Master many years ago and in a very supercilious tone said, what are the assets of this organization? Master said, none, only God. That is what somebody who really wants to succeed in life needs to have, is the expectation. You've still got your strength. If you failed one way, do it in another way. That's the wonderful thing about America, that it has that kind of energy, but it's coming into the whole world. there's more and more of this consciousness of we can do it. Somebody said to an American not many years ago that, how can you do that? It doesn't seem possible. He said, well, others have done it, haven't they? Well, yeah. Well, I'm a peer person. Other human beings have done it. I'm a human being. I can do it. And he did. While you've got your strength, you can do whatever you want to do. Well, that's Dwapara Yuga consciousness. Otherwise, what would happen is that somebody who was a waiter would always be a waiter. It would be ridiculous for him to presume to own a restaurant. Somebody who was a ditch digger would just be a ditch digger. And I've found in Italy, for example, still that consciousness. But he was only something or other. How could he be this? But more and more people are beginning to rise out of that mud and realize that I can do it. And there's no reason why a ditch digger shouldn't be just as competent as a leader of industry if he gets the chance. So create your own chance. That's what I'm talking about. This is Dwapara Yuga. Again, in medicine, Dwapara Yuga, oh gosh, the time. I could go on and on, so never mind. I'll just try to make it quick. Because I want to show you that this Dwapara Yuga is really, it's for all levels of life. For instance, in medicine, I've been working with Peter on getting him to write a book on cooperative healing. In the past, healing has all been a matter of you sit back and somebody else does it to you. Now, Sherry Bernadette is a dentist. I can't really imagine cooperating with you in putting that drill into my tooth. But I can imagine brushing my teeth more regularly. I can imagine taking more responsibility for my health. I went to the cardiologist a couple of days ago, and he said I ought to, he said, how much exercise do you get? I said, well, not enough. So he started to, sort of took a breath to start his spiel. I said, don't bother. I'm not trying to prolong my life. I'm just trying to get done what I have to do. After that, I'm out of here. And he sort of paused a moment in shock, because I know that he would want me to climb all sorts of mountains and stuff. And, well, take a leisurely stroll up a hill at least. And he paused a moment. He said, well, you are 76. In fact, however, cooperative healing, I think, is really essential. But too many doctors think they're the healer. We've got to understand that we cooperate with that. These energization exercises, for example, are just absolutely wonderful. Some people say, well, I get exercise, I go out and play tennis. It's not the same thing. When you're doing the energization exercises, you're not thinking of a racket and a ball. You're thinking of the energy that you're sending to your body. And just as important as sending that energy is what Master said afterwards, tense with will, relax and feel. Relaxing, feeling that energy. That's also, and just as important as sending it. These two keep you in a state of extraordinary balance. And I've been really amazed to see how with that willpower, well, I had heart surgery, as you know, nearly 8 years ago. And I was given, just a day before the operation, the marriage book that I have, the Expansive Marriage. Self-Expansion Through Marriage is the title. I want to change it to. And somebody had written a preface, but she had said that I haven't had the time to polish it. Would you please feel free to polish it as you like? So I did. And the day before the operation, I worked on this and did the first half of it. Well, then I had the operation. Well, you know, a heart operation is a moderately serious thing, and I had been out for quite a while. And so when you have anesthesia and stuff like this, your brain isn't altogether clear. And the next morning, I was sort of in a fog. And then I remembered that I had this preface to do, and the printer was waiting for it, and they couldn't go on without it. So I sort of pushed that fog aside, put willpower into it, sent energy out, and found that I could finish the preface. And the doctor came in to me the day after that and said, how are you feeling? I said, great. He said, come on, you've got to be in a lot of pain. Oh yeah, there's pain, but I feel so much more energy. My heart was an enemy and now it's a friend. Well, think of the positive side, but realize that that energy can have positive results also. For example, the surgeon told me I'd never come out of atrial fibrillation. And the next day I came out of it. Well, the other cardiologist, the one who was right on the scene, said to me, I have to tell you something. Medically speaking, the chances of your coming out of it were 0. So what do we call it? A miracle? I don't know. But I have seen again and again that willpower, added to whatever you have to do medically and so on, is really very important. And when the doctor and the patient can work hand in hand like this, then you have healing in a way that'll never happen if you're just sort of sitting there like a couch potato waiting for him to do it all for you. So in medicine too, we're going to have a change to the point where I believe that 100 years from now, people will look back on modern medical practice as almost shamanism, sort of witch doctors. It isn't the pill that cures you, really. It's your own spirit that does it. And medicine should understand that its purpose is to facilitate that spirit, not to say, well, okay for spirit, but here's the pill you need. I do believe that the future of medical practice is going to change greatly, and I see it encouragingly so in many young doctors who understand the importance of attitude, the importance of mind, the importance, in fact, of exercise, which, okay. But your own part of it is vital. In fact, it's the most important part of all. And so in medicine, education, in our schools, we've put in something Master brought, a new method of education that brings the children into the act, that touches their feelings, that helps them to be inspired. Modern education is essentially atheistic. But what education needs and will have is inspiration and trying to people have this intuition that education should be educare, to bring out, to lead out of the student his own native knowledge. Well, let's face it, when you try to pretend that a student is wise when he isn't, you're just, well, a lot of sort of progressive education, presuming that, teaches the children nothing. You have to be an authority, but you have to bring them into it. They have to be a part of it so that their reaction to this information is important. Don't just shovel it down their throats as they do in Orthodox or, well, in the European schools. There's a lot said about how they teach children much better than here, only because they get facts into their heads better. But I don't know that they teach better in other ways, because they make them dry, sort of shriveled prunes. I know that this is what Paolo and Laura have lamented in Italy, that too much of the schooling that their children are getting is just factual, no wisdom. No emphasis on experience, no emphasis on those things in life which will give you what you really want, which is the various kinds of fulfillment I've been talking about. So in business, in medicine, in education, in interpersonal relationships, in politics, in art, well, I had this thought back when I was 18. It was sort of an inspiration that came to me. But it's the truth. That and this is what I wrote in Art as a Hidden Message, the real thing that you give in art is your consciousness, your energy. And if that's lacking, you won't be able to do anything but give them something interesting. But it won't change their lives. Art can change it. What is so wonderful about Shakespeare? I think more than anything else, it's that it's a delight to read. There's a certain vibration there of joy and inspiration that is you don't find it in most writing. If you look at modern writing today, it's almost sick. It's so down, negative. Oh, I don't want to go on about that one. I happen to feel deeply about it. But I believe that in Dwapara Yuga, there will be much more understanding that what I'm sharing with people is my consciousness, my energy, not just my skill. I could have a painting of a devil that was extremely well executed. Would I want it in my house? I certainly would not. If I'm not going to invite that devil into my home as a guest, why put him up on a wall where I've got to look at him day in and day out? I'd rather have paintings that inspire me. If I'm going to have a portrait, I'd rather have it of somebody who makes me think, I'd like to be that way. I'd like to know that person. Why think that just because somebody has skillfully painted somebody who's a complete degenerate, should I feel that I should put it up there because his name happens to be famous, the artist's name? Art, in all fields, is becoming and is going to become more and more a matter of vibrational exchange, consciousness exchange. I'd love to go on this subject. I could make a book of it. Maybe I will. But I feel that these are keys that give you the way to open the door to a new way of living in whatever field you may be interested in. Because this is what Master brought. And finally, in Kriya Yoga, it's not just a matter of how many Kriyas you do. It's a matter of the devotion, the energy, the consciousness that you bring to bear on your meditation. This is true religion. The other is just mummery. Okay.